your life. Go.
Hello, my name is Kevin Bateman, and this is I Love Where You Belong in Thoor, Ballylee, in Gort, County Galway. We are still alive in soul. Our ancient enemy, ghosts. Our ancient enemy friends. Release me from your trance. You said to me once, how can you love me? Your darling wife. I said, you do not know how to love me. How could you? But you did. And I did. And we never spoke. And we never kissed. And we never went to bed. But we still loved. In its hyena madness, we felt righteous or justified love. Thank you. This poem is called Forever Ever Fear Death. The holy road we walked on, covered in leaves, some swept into shapes. We lay down and covered ourselves in them. So we could not be free. Wrinkled, crumbling skin. Thank you. I give for you, Matt Mooney. I'm getting the wall.
Who's that, Matt?
Do you want to come down to the river?
Dad.
I will sing for you, or I will say for you, the singing woods. Slipping onto a motorway, you were challenged by a charging elephant, an unyielding juggernaut terrorizing you. Surviving just about, driving on track, easing away onwards. Words throwing you a lifeline, hauling you away from the brink. Settling into cruise mode, gathering at will the gifts unpaid, unaided words that drop into your head. Seductive and insistent, waiting on you to work, to be yours. Words that spring up in your singing woods. Falling metaphors in the light, filtering through. And the second poem I will read to you is The Intruder. An early morning intrusion into my sleep, and I myself became the intruder. The intruder. At 5, a pheasant called me. I had heard a constant cackle in an open bedroom window from where she had her nest and cared for all her chickens. So I stole out with my camera for an exciting morning shoot. But she rose up at the dawning, broadcasting her protestations that I was an intruder, prying into her private family affairs. We are almost at Halloween. I'm going to read you a poem called The Winter Man. I do not like you, Winter Man, walking slowly towards me with your long black coat brushing against the bushes, black as well this evening. It's your fault, you old timer. You stole the leaves of gold and sent the sun to bed early, donning your broad grey hat for Halloween above us all, driving the grey road ribbon, leaving Abbey Field behind, headlights on at 5:30 against your onward march, dipping downhill to Thoor through descending darkness, ever trying to creep over me. A rising string of streetlights up the Glenside football village, each orange glow my beacon. And finally I will read for you a poem called Declan Clark's. The tsunami of set dancing almost drove me back, going in the swing doors of the wayside pub. An overwhelming wave, sounds welcome to my ear, inebriating me again, refueling my senses after the long weary miles down every road to be a native for a while. Only a village away now under the mountain's brow, to the old home on the hill, once a house of half-sets, rising the dust on cement, burning the lamplight low. Child up late, enthralled by grown-up merrymaking. There in Declan Clark's, neither the young or old spared the wooden floor. They all hammered home with their boots and shoes every note of every reel. Rising rhythmic fever felt as Oliver Rowland played. He's made of Mount Cisco, and I was just the caller in.
All right. Siobhan? Phone, yeah.
appreciate it. Daniel, you ready? You want to go to the other side? Yeah. Sorry, man. Oh, what a view!
What a view. Okay, I'll try not to fall into the water.
I give for you, Daniel Mulcahy.
This is a poem called Exile. I wrote it because I had a fight with my brother, and that's not something that has happened in quite some time. So we were in the Alps at the time, and on the way down into the valley in a car, and my brother wouldn't let me put on my seatbelt, so I punched him and I got out of the car, and that's where the story starts. This is called Exile. I turn my back on the village below, begin to hike. Back up road to the chateau, on past paths and gutters, fields and trees, skirting the mountain lake to snake up yellow slopes, pausing once on a rock outcrop to read, again to stand on a ruined wall and piss. Clouds roll by in silent waves, outpace me. Farther still, over shoulders of grass, to the peak's brown scalp where a patch of orange lichen persists. I lie, back arched, skull to the stone, so the valley spreads inverted. Gasps of cloud drain into the sky as I pull off the strain that keeps me in motion, leaving me cold and spent in the company of menacing sheep. So there were sheep on the mountain. I don't know how many of you got that. This poem is for my grandfather. It's about my grandfather and Donald Trump. It's called Election. In the indelible grey of dawn, my mother's head hangs disembodied to tell me Donald Trump got in. Another morning, another haggard truth. My granddad died of heart attack one night, but mother left me rest in peace. She broke the news on the staircase, the house-high window streaming daylight. My body bowed double, immovable with grief. But the sun moves on in the sky, and over the oceans a freight train shudders through fog headlong towards the unforeseen. I burrow into the darkness of the duvet, close my eyes, go back to sleep. That poem is for my granddad, so this next poem is for my grandmother. It's called Surveil for Sheila Courtney. I remember my nana who lives by the sea in a bungalow sheltered by mountains, an old blue house with the red roof perched on a grassy slope above the waves. On one side the water has cut the ground up to 30 feet from the south veranda, a room where my nana brings visitors when she wants a bit of privacy, where wooden seagulls hang suspended, and my father wrote his father's eulogy on an old box computer. The veranda lies off the largest room, which holds the piano, bookcases, rats in the floorboards, the frames of Sombre Ancestor, and The Return of the Prodigal Son by Brecht. I laid my granddad out where normally you would find the scratchy African cushions that give me breathing problems, the coffee table covered in books on prayer. The dining table by the crystal cabinet too heavy to move, it was cleared of the many boxes of photographs I have yet to open. My nana's house has many rooms, but only 2 feel lived in anymore. The first, of course, the kitchen. We gather around the table to talk, play Scrabble, and wait to be served the home-cooked meals. We watch my nana's flour-caked hands as she kneads the dough, nibbles at scraps, and as long as we're not in the way, stand in the warmth of the oven as the scones toughen. It is the room of soup, jam and brown bread, the room with a view of the bird feeders on the porch, a view down slope to the sea and Black Island, a shoulder of moss-covered stone not 50 yards from the shoreline at low tide. My father and uncle swam out on warm days. From those cold waters my grandad would emerge, freshly baptized by the ocean. Further down the beach is a stump of stone and soil where monks lie buried. Me and my cousins would clamber here as kids and trample on the graves, throw rocks on rocks and get a thrill from those little explosions. It was on this strand they showed me how to skip pebbles, although I never got the knack. It was here myself and Dermot Oak passed a ball along the firm strip of sand between the stones and the ripple lines left by the waves. The second room I cannot dress in memory. Down the narrow corridor that splits the house is my Nana's bedroom. I have never seen its curtains fully open. The bed a cocoon of heavy quilts, the shelves and cupboards cluttered with lace and the artifacts of an old woman's faith. I know very little of what happens in this room, only that it smells of perfume, and that it is here she retreats at regular intervals when we must stay very quiet and keep the hall door shut. Whenever we enter that house, it is always to the round embrace of a woman whose silver hair now brushes my chin. Whenever we leave, she stands in the doorway or the open window, eyes wet, smiling and waving till our car creeps past the apple trees and evergreens, up the quiet Boreen and out of sight. That was a very long poem, so this last poem is short, to round things out. It's called Responses to Reaching Out. It is an art, this pulling away, that by the day gets simpler. Without our asking, a flower opens suddenly. Sunlight stretches across the sky to trace our features, and every morning we reach for loss like a pair of old glasses. Thanks for listening, guys.
John?
I give for you Aisling Keogh.
I'm going to read a story called Grayscale, published a couple of years ago in Ropes. Months later, you told me you timed it. That was how you knew the sun would set at 6:02 p.m. on the 21st of February. You knew because the day before you stood alone on the rickety wooden jetty and listened to the water's gentle lapping. And, as the red sun slid towards the horizon, you glanced at your watch and committed the memory to time. Of course, I can only imagine, but you must have felt a little disloyal, planning, as you did, to make a memory of a sunset with me. For my part, if I thought it was odd, you would choose to share the romance of a sunset with me. I certainly wasn't going to say so. I understood why. I was grateful. It was another one of those things we could never speak about, but I understood your implicit wish to share something that would be just ours. Something extraordinary. So that when other couples daydream and sigh, we'll always have Paris, the way they do in films, we can always say we'll have sunset on Loch Carib. From the start we did that thing that couples do, texting each other when we were on our way to meet, and again when we arrived home afterwards. On my way, kiss. Home safe, kiss. There was always a kiss. I relied on a single letter at the end of a text message to convey what I could never say aloud. Earlier that day, driving towards the Galway road, I sent you a text message. It was just as I passed under the pedestrian bridge at Palmerstown. It said, "I'm on the road, kiss." Your reply was a buoyant, hurry up, kiss. I was already driving at the speed limit. We started to play one of our games. I sent you a message from every town I passed through. Maynooth, kiss. Kilcock, kiss. Kinnegad, kiss. Athlone, kiss. Ballinasloe, kiss. Loughrea, kiss. And you sent the same response each time. Hurry up, kiss. My chest swelled with the familiar giddy rush. I loved that our stupid game of text messaging each other made our time together begin sooner. You were perched on the wall outside the house waiting for me when I arrived. Emma. You sang my name in a high-pitched voice, but its sounds quickly faded underneath the crunch of tyres on gravel. I hopped out of the car and we hugged briefly, but your coat was already on. Come on, you said, we don't want to miss it. From the passenger seat of my battered green Corsa, you directed me through a maze of back roads until we arrived at the shores of Loch Carib. I parked beside an old boat shed with faded lettering stenciled on its doors over peeling red paint. Kilbeg Angling Club. I read the words aloud. You laughed and linked my arm as we walked down to the water and onto the same wooden jetty you used the day before to watch the sky perform a show of pinks, oranges and gold. We stood, self-conscious, not touching, both vaguely aware this was an infidelity of sorts. My body ached, remembering how it felt to sit next to you, shoulder to shoulder, and feel the heat of your body through my shirt. Remembering the pressure of that contact, crying out for the pleasure of its sensation. Close enough to breathe in the scent of your apple shampoo, I leaned forward and inhaled. And it wasn't that I wanted to, but once the sun had set, I had to move away. I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't stand not touching you. I wandered off with the camera while you stayed close to the edge of that tiny wooden platform and gazed out over the lake. You stood with your eyes still trained on the spot where the sun finally dipped out of sight. I worked quickly to line up the shot and wondered if you ever missed me. From a safe distance, I called out to you from behind my camera. So, how's it all going for you? I kept the tone light. It wasn't as though it was a loaded question. I reached forward to manually adjust the camera lens, and the gesture exposed my wrist and the silver link bracelet you gave me as a parting gift. In Dublin, in my world, and not here in yours, it seemed okay to wear it all the time. It felt different here. You didn't answer the question at first. Dead air hung clumsily between us. When I looked up from the camera, I saw your chest heave, your shoulders shudder, and I watched as you furiously scribbled at your cheek with a clenched fist. It's okay. Well, it's not okay. I spent a lot of time on my own. Your voice didn't sound like your own. My reply was a nod as I lined up the next shot. It's not even that bad because things are pretty much how I expected they would be. You can't build a whole new life in 2 months. No, I agreed. It will take at least a year to settle. I meant to sound sympathetic and wise, but what I said sounded hollow and stupid, and I cursed myself for it. And Tom. I'd been studying the camera's tiny screen and the image of you I'd just captured. No sooner were the words out of my mouth than I wanted to grab them and stuff them and put them back in. The photograph was taken in profile. Black boots, a black coat, black jeans and black sunglasses, all silhouetted against a silver lake. It was a dismal picture. When did you lose your colour? He's fine, you said quickly. I straightened up, filled with the camera while you walked towards me. Good, I forced a weak smile. Yeah, it is good. It'd be a terrible pity to have moved my whole life here and then. You shrugged rather than finish the sentence. Evidently it was your turn to force a smile. Ready? Yeah. We linked arms as we turned to walk towards the car but broke away from each other, grinning stupid, unspoken apologies, before we had covered half of the distance. That night the three of us, you, me and Tom, went for a few drinks in the local pub, a 1980s relic of bad taste where the return of those moulded plastic ashtrays the smoking ban took away would have enhanced the decor. Tom sat at the edge of a formica-topped table, smiled, sipped his Guinness, while you and I quaffed vodka and cranberry juice and raised our glasses to friendship in defiance of whatever it was happened at the lake shore. Later on, when we were back at the cottage, you and he bought together, Tom went to bed, insisting he was tired and that it was fine. We should really stay up for a nightcap. After other nights out, we sat up together and talked about nothing, just to delay the night's end. But our banter was uneasy, and we tried so hard to make it right it became heightened, hysterical, more confusing. I tried to ask you again during a brief moment between highs of giddy laughter, but before I could stutter out the question, you raised your hand to stop me. You shook your head and let your fringe fall over to cover your eyes and face, and from underneath a mess of dyed blonde hair, you stared at the table for what felt like ages. When you looked up, your eyes brimmed with tears. Please, you said, I can't go back. So I left it. Maybe I should have pushed it, asked you one more time, properly, and insisted on an answer. And then again, maybe I shouldn't have said anything at all. Later, from the tiny guest bedroom next door to yours, I could hear you both settling for the night. Tom roused and spoke to you in mumbled, sleepy tones. Did you have a good night? He said. You muttered something I couldn't make out. The bed springs creaked, then Tom spoke again. She's nice. It's nice having her here. That was what he said. I imagined you lying beside him in the dark, trying to think of a way to end the conversation. But that was all you said. Not that it mattered. Tom was already snoring. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Daniel? Everybody?
That's the passion. Do you want to step over, Daniel? Hello. This is where I love where I belong. What is it called again? I love where. What is it called again? I love where you belong. In Thoor, in Gort, County Galway. This is Daniel Mulcahy, Aisling Keogh, and Matt Mooney. Thank you all very much.
Woo! Beautiful.